April 7th, 1943. Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. The morning sun burned through the humid South Pacific air, glinting off steel-plated runways, the lush jungle rising beyond. 22-year-old First Lieutenant James Swett of VMF 221 walked briskly toward his F-4F Wildcat, heart pounding but mind clear. This was his first combat mission. He had trained endlessly, memorized every maneuver, every drill, every emergency procedure, but never fired his guns in anger. Radar blipped ominously in the tower. 150 enemy aircraft were inbound. 67 Val dive bombers, escorted by 110 Zero fighters, were converging on Tulagi Harbor and Henderson Field. Every seasoned Marine pilot knew the odds. Rookies didn't survive their first encounter with veteran Japanese pilots. Swett's wingmen braced themselves, the tension palpable. Even his division commander, with 26 confirmed kills, had voiced concern. Yet Swett did not hesitate. Stepping into the cockpit, he ran through his checklist methodically. Throttle, flaps, guns, canopy. The roar of the Wildcat's engine filled his ears. Sweat ran down his neck, but his hands were steady. He had been trained for this. Every drill, every flight simulator, every emergency maneuver was about to be tested under fire. As he taxied down the runway and lifted into the brightening sky, the enormity of the situation struck him. He was alone in skill and experience against overwhelming numbers. But he remembered his instructor's words. Trust your training, trust your aircraft, trust yourself. Swett climbed to altitude, scanning the horizon. Tiny dark specks appeared in the distance, growing larger, faster. In the cockpit, adrenaline mixed with fear, but Swett's focus sharpened. His mission was clear: intercept the incoming formation and prevent them from reaching the harbor. Experience might have been absent, but training and preparation were now his only weapons. The radar blip had grown into a solid, dark mass over the horizon, moving with terrifying precision. Swett's stomach tightened as he realized the scale. 150 enemy aircraft closing fast. Zeros weaved in disciplined formations around the dive bombers, their sleek silhouettes cutting through the morning light. He wasn't just facing numbers. He was facing experience, skill honed over countless missions. Veteran pilots said rookies didn't survive such encounters. Swett had none of their experience, no kills, no combat hours. But he had one advantage that no manual could teach: intensive, flawless training. Every reaction, every maneuver had been drilled to muscle memory. He checked his wingmen, 2 other Wildcats lagging slightly behind, and felt a jolt of responsibility. They were counting on him to lead the intercept. A small voice of fear whispered, "We're outnumbered, we'll be torn apart." But Swett shut it down. He reviewed the tactical principles they had practiced. Maintain altitude, attack from advantage, disrupt enemy formations. Timing would be everything. As the formation drew closer, the first valves dropped into dive, aiming for the ships below. Swett identified the closest target and dove into a steep intercept, bringing the nose of his Wildcat down with precision. His hands moved instinctively over the controls, his trigger finger poised. He had never fired in combat, yet the drill kicked in seamlessly. He released the first bursts at extreme close range, watching tracer rounds tear across the bomber's fuselage. Flames erupted, and the aircraft spiraled downward into the sea. Swett felt no triumph, only intense focus. Around him, the Japanese formation responded, Zeros pivoting to intercept. For a rookie, every split second was life or death. His training dictated his moves. Bank sharply, climb steeply, avoid overshooting the target. He repeated the process, selecting valves for attack, conserving his limited ammunition, maneuvering to avoid the escorting Zeros. In 15 minutes above Tulagi Harbor, Swett's training collided with impossible odds. Every calculation, every reflex, every learned maneuver became crucial. Experience, the veterans believed, was what ensured survival. Swett was about to prove them wrong. Swett's first bursts of gunfire were precise, almost surgical. The Val seemed oblivious to the Wildcat approaching from angles no rookie would normally dare. Yet, with each pass, Swett's confidence built, tempered by the constant awareness that a single mistake could mean death. The first bomber erupted in flames, falling into the blue-green water of Tulagi Harbor. Swett barely had time to observe before the next Val entered his sights. He aimed carefully, following the target through a high-speed dive. Another burst, another bomber disintegrating. Around him, tracer rounds zipped by, both friend and foe, making it nearly impossible to focus. Each successful hit came with an immediate cost. A Zero fighter streaked past him, guns blazing, sending tracers that chewed along the wings of his Wildcat. Swett rolled and dove, instinct and training guiding every movement. He dodged, adjusted, and leveled out only to find more targets lining up for their dives. He realized quickly that his actions had a ripple effect. The Japanese bombers, once descending in perfect formation, began to break apart under the unexpected aggression of a single Wildcat. Their coordination faltered. Some pilots overcorrected in panic. Others veered off, leaving gaps for the remaining Vals to escape. Swett wasn't just shooting. He was disrupting the entire attack pattern. Despite the chaos, Swett's training allowed him to manage the impossible. Each attack followed a disciplined sequence: target acquisition, angle of approach, controlled burst, evasion, and repositioning. The lessons drilled into him at El Toro and in flight school transformed him from a nervous rookie into a methodical hunter in a storm of fire and metal. After only minutes, several bombers were destroyed, and the escorting Zeros were reacting more cautiously, wary of the audacious rookie. Swett's first kills were not only acts of survival, they were turning points. He had proven, in real time, that training and instinct could outweigh experience, even against overwhelming odds. Yet, the battle was far from over. His ammunition was dwindling, and more Japanese aircraft were descending toward the harbor. Every decision now carried the weight of survival for himself and the ships below. As the smoke and fire from the down bombers drifted across the harbor, Swett realized something terrifying. The main formation was regrouping. The remaining Vals were realigning, escorted closely by Zeros, scanning the skies for the rogue Wildcat that had just shredded part of their attack. His wingmen were scattered, out of position, already engaged, or forced into defensive maneuvers. Swett was effectively alone. A rookie with no confirmed kills, no combat experience, and a limited amount of ammunition faced an entire Japanese aerial fleet. The odds, 37 enemy aircraft for every American fighter, were stark. Yet the focus that training had ingrained in him did not falter. Every maneuver, every climb and dive was calculated with precision. He exploited the energy retention of his F-4F Wildcat, climbing steeply to force overshoot passes and using its tight turning radius to evade pursuing Zeros. He saw another group of dive bombers lining up for their attack run on Tulagi. There was no time for hesitation. Swett dove directly into the formation, firing short, controlled bursts at extreme close range. Flames erupted from two more Vals as they tumbled toward the harbor. Around him, the Zeros adjusted, attempting to intercept, but Swett's timing and positioning made him a difficult target. Each evasive maneuver was a dance between life and death, instinct and learned technique. What Swett discovered in those moments wasn't just about combat. It was about disrupting enemy cohesion. By attacking aggressively, decisively, and unpredictably, he forced the Japanese formation to break apart. Dive patterns faltered, gunners hesitated, and coordination collapsed under the audacity of a single rookie fighter. His actions were rewriting the rules of engagement above Guadalcanal. Minutes stretched like hours as Swett pursued, fired, and evaded. The roar of engines, the streak of tracers, and the distant thunder of bomb impacts created a chaotic symphony. Yet, through it all, his focus remained unbroken. The line between training and experience blurred as Swett's decisions in real time demonstrated that preparation and precision could triumph over seasoned skill in critical moments. He had survived the first wave, but the battle was far from over. Swett climbed sharply, pulling his Wildcat into a high-altitude pursuit of the remaining Vals. He could see the harbor far below, smoke spiraling from the hits he had scored, ships maneuvering to avoid bombs, Marines and sailors bracing for the next wave. The Japanese pilots were disciplined. Despite losing aircraft, they maintained formations, covering each other as best they could. Every mistake Swett made could cost him his life. His ammunition was dwindling. The F4 FS limited rounds meant every shot had to count. A stray burst wasted could leave him powerless when a bomber or fighter approached. He forced himself to focus on angles and priority targets. Each Val's dive trajectory was predictable, trained, methodical, almost mechanical. Swett exploited this predictability, striking first, then immediately evading. Zeros swooped down repeatedly, attempting to intercept him. He rolled and dove, using vertical maneuvers to force them past him. The Wildcat's energy retention allowed him to climb back quickly, putting him in a position to strike the bombers again. Despite being alone, he was shaping the battle above Tulagi Harbor. The Japanese pilots, confident in their numbers, had not anticipated the audacity of a single American rookie aggressively engaging the dive bombers. In a span of minutes, Swett had destroyed multiple Vals. Each kill not only reduced the immediate threat, but caused disarray among the remaining formation. Pilots overcorrected in panic. Bombs were released early, and several dive bombers veered off course. The veteran Japanese pilots began to respect the unexpected skill of the young Marine, reassessing their strategy on the fly. Swett's training, drilled to perfection, allowed him to process dozens of simultaneous threats: enemy aircraft, gunfire, bomb trajectories, and fuel limitations. His mind functioned as a precise instrument, reacting faster than fear could take hold. By the time the remaining Vals completed their descent, Swett had forced the Japanese attack into chaos. Their coordination was shattered, their approach weakened, and the harbor below had been spared the brunt of destruction. For a 22-year-old on his first combat mission, the impossible had been achieved, not through experience, but through discipline, preparation, and courage under fire. Yet, even as the last bombers fell behind him, the threat remained. Zeros circled, fuel was limited, and he needed to return safely to Henderson Field. Survival depended on the next critical decisions. With the Vals scattered and the immediate bombing threat diminished, Swett turned his attention to the escorting Zeros. Though they had been cautious, a single mistake could bring one of them back onto his tail. His fuel gauge showed dangerously low levels, leaving little room for extended dogfighting. Every second now required precise calculation. Speed, altitude, maneuvering, and energy management were critical to reaching Henderson Field alive. He leveled out, assessing the positions of the Zeros. Their pilots were wary, circling at a distance, uncertain whether the audacious Wildcat was still a serious threat. Swett's earlier attacks had disrupted their confidence, and he exploited it. Instead of pursuing them directly, he used altitude and the Wildcat's rugged agility to zigzag toward friendly territory, minimizing exposure. Each roll, each dive, each climbing turn was executed with meticulous control, a stark contrast to the chaos swirling around him moments before. The Japanese pilots continued to watch, hesitant to commit, giving Swett precious minutes. He calculated his glide paths, adjusted throttle carefully, and conserved what little fuel remained. The Wildcat was responding, but he could feel the strain on the airframe after several high-G maneuvers, bullets pockmarking the fuselage. His eyes scanned constantly, checking for stray Vals or surprise attacks. The air was full of tension. One misjudgment could be fatal. As Henderson Field came into view, Swett noted the defensive measures already in place. Anti-aircraft crews had raised alert, wary of unidentified aircraft approaching from Tulagi. He adjusted his approach, staying low, using the natural contours of the terrain to mask his silhouette until the last possible moment. Timing was everything. Too early, and he risked friendly fire, too late, and the landing could be disastrous. Finally, the runway loomed ahead. Swett throttled back gently, keeping the Wildcat steady despite the uneven gear and minor damage sustained in combat. The moment felt surreal. Minutes earlier, he had been one of 150 targets in a life-or-death sky, and now he was preparing to touch down on solid ground, alive and victorious. Swett landed safely. The engines coughed their final notes as the aircraft rolled to a stop. Marines and squadron members rushed forward, relief and astonishment etched on every face. The rookie had survived against impossible odds, proving that training, discipline, and courage could triumph over experience alone. Once Swett's Wildcat rolled to a stop, the enormity of what had just occurred began to sink in. On the ground, squadron members and Marines stared at the aircraft, riddled with bullet holes and battle scars. The F-4F had endured multiple hits, yet remained airborne long enough for Swett to return safely. It was a testament not only to the pilot's skill, but to the ruggedness of the machine he flew. Swett climbed out of the cockpit, uninjured but exhausted, sweat and grime streaking his face. Around him, the crew examined the Wildcat, counting holes and tallying damage, while pilots shared incredulous glances. He had faced 150 enemy aircraft alone on his first combat sortie, and lived. Not only had he survived, but his aggressive, precise attacks had forced the enemy to scatter, saving Henderson Field and the ships in Tulagi Harbor from devastating losses. Squadron leaders quickly debriefed him, eager to understand how a rookie had executed maneuvers that even veteran pilots admitted would have been extraordinarily difficult. Swett described the sequence of attacks, his use of energy tactics, timing, and positioning. It became clear that his extensive training, practiced to instinct, had compensated for a lack of combat experience. Every decision was deliberate, each movement calculated to maximize effect while minimizing exposure to enemy fire. News of his exploits spread rapidly through VMF 221. The narrative of a young, inexperienced pilot standing against overwhelming odds captured the imagination of Marines and sailors alike. Swett's actions challenged conventional wisdom. Rookies were not automatically destined to fail their first missions. Properly trained pilots could act decisively, using their aircraft and tactics intelligently to survive and even succeed against larger forces. The Japanese losses were also significant. The scattering of the formation and the destruction of several dive bombers had reduced the effectiveness of the attack on the harbor. Supplies, equipment, and personnel were spared, enabling the ongoing Halsey-led operations on Guadalcanal to continue with fewer setbacks. Swett had changed more than just that morning's battle. He had created a precedent. Skillful training, applied under pressure, could rival experience in determining outcomes in aerial combat. Veterans began to reassess rookie participation in high-risk missions, and training programs were scrutinized, refined, and emphasized more than ever before. Word of James Swett's extraordinary first mission spread beyond Henderson Field. Squadron commanders, senior officers, and intelligence analysts studied his report, fascinated by how a rookie pilot had inflicted severe disruption on an enemy formation of 150 aircraft. Swett's actions became an example of how disciplined training, quick thinking, and situational awareness could redefine the limits of combat doctrine. His wingmen, who had initially feared for his life, now viewed the young Marine with awe. Letters were sent to headquarters praising the precision of his attacks, his calm under fire, and his ability to prioritize critical targets while under extreme stress. The tactical lesson was clear. Rookies, if properly trained and mentally prepared, could perform successfully even in overwhelmingly dangerous scenarios. Military tacticians analyzed the engagement. Swett's aggressive approach against the Vals had disrupted the dive bomber formation, forcing enemy pilots into mistakes and miscommunication. His use of altitude, maneuvering, and timing created a tactical advantage that theory alone could not predict. This challenged existing doctrines that emphasized experience over intensive, repetitive training for rookie pilots. Swett himself remained humble. He credited his instructors, his squadron's rigorous practice sessions, and the reliability of the F-4F Wildcat for his survival and success. Yet, his name quickly became legendary among Marine aviators. He demonstrated that training could produce results equal to, or even surpassing, combat experience under the right conditions. The broader impact extended to the Guadalcanal campaign. The destruction of multiple enemy dive bombers and the disruption of Japanese formations had spared ships, supplies, and lives, ensuring that Marines could maintain positions critical for the ongoing campaign. Strategically, Swett's actions underscored the value of bold, calculated engagement rather than passive defense, particularly for inexperienced pilots. This mission would later be cited in tactical manuals and training programs, emphasizing the importance of preparing young aviators for high-stakes scenarios. James Swett's first sortie proved that courage and training, not just battlefield experience, could determine the outcome of critical engagements, a lesson that would resonate throughout the Pacific theater. The engagement over Tulagi Harbor on April 7, 1943, became a defining moment for the Marine Corps and the broader Allied air strategy in the Pacific. Analysts dissected Swett's first combat mission in painstaking detail, studying how a single, well-trained pilot could disrupt a numerically superior force. It became clear that intensive, realistic training could prepare rookies to perform decisively, even when facing veteran enemy pilots. At Henderson Field, instructors integrated Swett's experiences into training curricula. Simulated attacks began emphasizing situational awareness, energy management, and aggressive tactics under pressure. No longer was the assumption that rookies were too fragile for high-stakes missions absolute. Swett had demonstrated that discipline, mental preparation, and precise execution could allow inexperienced pilots to survive and even succeed in life-or-death engagements. For his peers, the lessons were immediate and visceral. Wingmen who had once hesitated to engage enemy aircraft without more experienced pilots now understood the value of initiative. Observation of Swett's tactics, attacking valves decisively, forcing formation breakdown, and managing limited ammunition, revealed how cognitive agility under stress could amplify the effectiveness of skill and aircraft performance. The Japanese forces, in contrast, encountered unexpected resistance. The loss of several dive bombers, coupled with the disruption of their attack formations, reduced the effectiveness of that day's strike. Strategically, the action reinforced the Allied defense of Guadalcanal, protecting essential supplies and personnel. A rookie pilot's initiative had tangible consequences for the larger campaign. Beyond the immediate tactical and strategic effects, Swett's actions also influenced morale. His extraordinary performance inspired other young aviators, proving that preparedness and courage could overcome even overwhelming odds. It reinforced the belief that rigorous training, discipline, and confidence in one's abilities were as crucial as combat experience. Swett's experience became a touchstone, a reminder that even the harshest conditions, a well-prepared rookie could turn the tide, challenge conventional assumptions, and save lives through skill, courage, and tactical insight. James Swett's first mission did more than save ships and disrupt enemy formations. It cemented his place in Marine Corps history. Within weeks, his actions were formally recognized. Reports highlighted his aggressive tactics, precise shooting, and extraordinary composure under fire. More than raw bravery, it was the application of his training under extreme stress that set him apart. In the weeks and months following Guadalcanal, Swett continued flying combat missions, eventually earning ace status with multiple confirmed kills. Yet, it was the first sortie, the 150 aircraft engagement, that defined his legacy. Training programs for new pilots were adjusted to reflect the lessons learned. The importance of decision-making under pressure, managing energy and aircraft limitations, and understanding enemy behavior patterns. The assumption that rookies must wait for experience was challenged, replaced with a philosophy that skill, preparation, and calculated aggression could equal or surpass battlefield experience. Veteran pilots began mentoring rookies with a new perspective, emphasizing rehearsal, mental conditioning, and scenario planning. Swett's flight had proven that theoretical knowledge could be applied successfully in combat, and that preparation could compensate for lack of combat hours when executed precisely. Commanders incorporated his strategies into tactical briefings, teaching rookies how to attack formations decisively, anticipate enemy maneuvers, and remain calm amidst overwhelming odds. Strategically, the impact was significant. By demonstrating that even young, inexperienced pilots could disrupt coordinated enemy operations, Swett's actions contributed to a shift in how Allied air forces approached engagements in the Pacific. The emphasis on initiative, decisiveness, and exploiting enemy weaknesses became standard in subsequent campaigns. Swett's first mission also became a symbol of hope and courage. Stories circulated among Marines and airmen alike, illustrating that training, courage, and quick thinking could defy expectations. For future generations of pilots, the Guadalcanal sortie served as both instruction and inspiration, proving that extraordinary outcomes are possible when preparation meets opportunity, even against impossible odds. Years later, military historians and pilots reflected on Swett's first mission over Tulagi Harbor as a case study in survival and tactical innovation. Analysts examined how a single, inexperienced pilot had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious. The conclusion was clear: rigorous training, situational awareness, and mental preparation could rival, or even exceed, the value of raw combat experience. Swett himself spoke modestly about that morning. He emphasized that his success was not solely due to bravery, but to the countless hours spent mastering flight maneuvers, target acquisition, and energy management. Every emergency drill, every simulated dogfight, had prepared him to act instinctively under pressure. He highlighted that training was not about memorizing procedures, but about creating reflexive decision-making capabilities that could be applied in unpredictable combat situations. The mission also reinforced a fundamental truth of aerial warfare. Confidence in one's own skills and aircraft could change the outcome of engagements. Swett had relied on the F-4F Wildcat strengths, its durability, maneuverability, and climb rate, while minimizing vulnerabilities. By combining knowledge, discipline, and bold execution, he had forced a far superior enemy force to scatter, demonstrating that strategy and preparation can compensate for numerical inferiority. Swett's example influenced both pilots and instructors. Training programs increasingly incorporated realistic, high-pressure simulations, emphasizing aggressive tactics and adaptive thinking. Rookies were taught that survival depended not just on following doctrine, but on understanding the aircraft, anticipating enemy behavior, and maintaining composure when circumstances seemed hopeless. Above all, Swett's flight offered an enduring lesson. Combat is not a measure of fearlessness alone, but of how knowledge, preparation, and courage intersect to create decisive action. Guadalcanal had proven that a well-prepared rookie could not only survive, but also alter the course of battle, inspiring generations of pilots to trust their training and act decisively when it mattered most. James Swett's first combat mission over Guadalcanal became more than a remarkable story of survival. It became a cornerstone of Marine Corps aviation history. His actions that April morning demonstrated that intensive preparation, disciplined execution, and quick thinking could allow even a rookie pilot to achieve extraordinary results against overwhelming odds. The impact of his flight resonated beyond Tulagi Harbor. Training programs were revised to emphasize realistic combat scenarios, teaching rookies not only the mechanics of flying, but the art of thinking under pressure. Instructors highlighted Swett's tactics: aggressive engagement, energy management, and tactical foresight as models for future aviators. His experience shifted the perception of what a first-time combat pilot could accomplish, proving that courage supported by skill and preparation could rival years of experience. Swett himself continued to fly with distinction, earning ace status and accumulating numerous confirmed kills. Yet, it was his first sortie that remained legendary, inspiring generations of Marine aviators. His story was shared in debriefings, classrooms, and tactical studies, reminding all pilots that preparation could tip the scales in life-or-death encounters. Strategically, the mission had tangible consequences. By disrupting the Japanese formation, Swett had spared ships and supplies, preserving critical support for the Guadalcanal campaign. His engagement illustrated that individual action, guided by knowledge and discipline, could influence the broader outcome of a battle. Even today, Swett's flight serves as a lesson in leadership, initiative, and the importance of training. It reminds modern military forces that success is not solely measured by experience, but by the ability to apply knowledge decisively under pressure. His courage and skill on that fateful morning proved that when preparation meets opportunity, even the most daunting odds can be overcome. James Swett's legacy endures, a testament to the power of training, the audacity of youth, and the extraordinary results that can arise when a rookie pilot refuses to let fear dictate his fate. His story continues to inspire, a timeless example of heroism and tactical brilliance in the skies over Guadalcanal.